So who is James Talarico? Why are you seeing him on your TikTok and your Instagram? He is a Texas House representative. He represents Round Rock, Taylor, Hutto, Georgetown. So this outside of Austin. If you know anything about Texas politics, Austin is very progressive. You've seen him go viral probably several times. He delivered a sermon that was pretty popular online at St. Andrews, his church that he grew up in November of 2022, arguing that Jesus is a feminist. Saw 3.
The first way we can tell that Jesus was a feminist is through his actions. And throughout the Gospels, Jesus is constantly subverting first century gender norms by talking with women, learning from women, healing women, trusting women. In fact, the only person to ever beat Jesus in a debate in the Bible was the Syrophoenician woman. Think about that. The only person to teach Jesus something was a woman. Even the Son of God had something to learn from one of God's daughters. The church should start to listen to them again.
Okay, so much blasphemy there. First of all, Jesus is God. Okay, so that's like pretty basic. Jesus is God. That means he's all-knowing. That means he's all-powerful. That means he is not limited by time and space, even though he entered time and space in the person of Jesus, who is fully God and fully man. He did not surrender his omniscience there. And so it is not possible for Jesus to have learned something that he did not already know. It is not possible for him to have made an error. It is not possible for Jesus to have lost a debate because he is all-knowing. He used this moment with the Syrophoenician woman as a learning opportunity and to teach her and the people around him something about faith. And this story is from Mark 7, when a woman he entered a house, and a woman whose little daughter had an unclean spirit heard of him and came and fell down at his feet. She was a Gentile, but she begged Jesus, please cast this demon out of my daughter. But he rebuked her and said the children should be fed first. So the non-Gentiles, the Israelites. And then, I'm not going to pay attention to you right now. And she says, yes, Lord, yet even the dogs, Gentiles under the table, eat the children's crumbs. And he said, for this statement, you may go your way. The demon has left your daughter. And so that is obviously not only showing what faith means, that it is by faith that we are saved, not by our ethnicity, not by being an Israelite or a Gentile, but by faith, as we see reiterated throughout the New Testament. But this is also a moment that was recorded, that was included in the Gospels to show that Jesus came for both the Jew and the Gentile, who are reconciled to each other and to God by grace through faith, as we read throughout the book of Ephesians. So progressives are always getting it wrong because they are reading their politics into the text and they miss the true meaning and beauty of the text. They miss the gospel in the text because they are looking to justify their politics. He also conflates the least of these in Matthew 25 with illegal aliens, with the world's poor. Apparently, according to the progressive, the least of these that is referenced in Matthew 25 is the military-aged male from Guatemala who crosses over our border and lives here and commits a life of crime. That is the least of these, but the innocent unborn child in the womb is not. Here's Psalm 4.
Christ says what we do for the least of these, we do for him. So where is Christ today? Christ is the immigrant, deported without due process. Christ is the senior, deprived of their Social Security benefits. Christ is the protester, kidnapped in an unmarked vehicle by plainclothes officers. Christ is the student, sitting in an overcrowded classroom in a defunded school. Sometimes I wonder, what would Jesus do if he visited the Texas legislature? What would he say to me and my colleagues? I think he would tell us, depart from me, for I was hungry and you cut my food stamps. I was sick and you kicked me off Medicaid. I was a stranger and you deported me and my family. I was in prison and you wouldn't even pay for air conditioning. And then I think he would flip over our fancy desks on the floor of the Texas House and demand that we take care of all our neighbors, especially the least of these.
Okay, again, so much wrong with this interpretation. Not even talking about his policy proposals, which maybe we could talk about those, although I think that those are misguided too. And I think that most of that is just disinformation about what's actually going on with those policies. But we could talk about that. But since he's bringing up theology, it's important to note what he is doing theologically here and why it is wrong. It is convincing, but it is wrong. One thing that progressive so-called Christians do is ascribe the personal to the political, or actually it's the opposite. Ascribe the political to the personal. So what I mean is that they will take Jesus's commands for you and me as individuals, or the Bible's dictates specifically to churches in particular, or to Christians in particular, and they will say this applies to governments and societies, while simultaneously arguing that allowing Christianity to influence our laws is Christo-fascism. So do you see the contradiction in what he's doing here? Simultaneously, he is saying that putting the 10 Commandments up in a classroom, that is oppressive, that is wrong. But he is also using the Bible to justify his policies and saying that his interpretation of Scripture should actually be the law of the land. So it's not a problem. He won't say this, but he doesn't actually believe that Christianity and state power should be separate. He wants his version of Christianity and state power to be inextricably intertwined, to give Democrats and the state more power to push progressive policies.